Hello and welcome to the Stew with JT Brew. I'm your host, Justin Taylor, alongside my co-host, Bryan Toast Clark. We are getting ready for another week of NHL action. We're going to talk about some of the players disappointing us this year on this edition of NHL Around the Ice. Stick with us. You're in the Stew.
You up on trades and why you move, you ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing, racking up points makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release, we started with the mock draft and now we making a mockery of the leaderboard. Quite obviously not a scrub, so start an institute, make evaluations like a commissioner do. It's to the point your wife make you watch in a different room. Update your roster and pick and choose when you get some news. Not much that we enjoy more than sipping brew, sifting through new statistics to make it to our end zones through different routes. Universities, institutes, down to homies who click in groups. I introduce you to the Stew with JT Brew.
Well, Toast, welcome back to another edition. Things have gotten a little crazy in our home league. You have gotten trade happy all over the place. I've never seen you just blow a team up like this early in the year. You just got nuts in the last 24, 36 hours and just started slinging players. I felt like every notification on my phone was another trade coming from you. Some big time moves in this last week. Before we jump into some of our disappointments for the season, let's talk about some of these moves you made and why you made them.
So, JT, you ever have a team halfway through a season where it'd be no different than a team in real life where you just got a feeling that this team's not going anywhere. They're underperforming. Speaking about underperforming, we're going to talk about some underperformers tonight. But before we do that, I may have had a midlife crisis and decided to make a million trades in about 24 hours. I'm gonna walk the listeners through kind of what I've done, and I'm gonna go ahead and post this on X as well, so that way we can maybe get some chatter and get some opinions. And who knows, maybe I lost a trade. Regardless, to me, it didn't make a difference if I won or lost a trade. I know I wanted change. Period. And so. First thing I did, I took a guy like Kirill Kaprizov from Minnesota, who's been really underachieving, pretty frustrating. He was one of my keepers, and I traded him straight up in our home league for Mitch Marner. Marner's actually off to a really good start. I think he just netted his 13th goal of the season last night. And right off the bat, I got points with Marner, and he's just a little bit more steady.
I love that move. As soon as I saw it, I was like, "Ooh, I wish I known I maybe could have got Marner from somebody," because I was like, I thought the move was great by you. I think he was making the move thinking that he hopes Kaprizov comes back, bounces back, but also you got him as a really nice keeper. So that's a possible keeper asset for the future for him. So in case people are wondering, like, maybe why would someone make that move straight up? For you were thinking you might have some other keepers down the road, and the guy in our league was thinking, hey, I'm giving up Marner, who's playing a little better, but this could be a really nice keeper because I think Marner was his number one pick or number two pick, if I'm correct. I think it was his number one pick, right?
Yeah, it was his number two. So he'd have a second round tag on Marner. And I think why the trade was a little appealing to Freddie in our league, shout out to Freddie, who really was interested in Kaprizov, it's because Kaprizov will only carry a fifth round tag next year. So in a 10-team league, he can have him as a 50th player, in the top 50 or whatever, draft wise. And, Kaprizov should be a top 15 player. He hasn't really played like it yet. And also, too, Freddie, you always kind of look at those teams and those players that you have in your league. And I knew that he was a huge Minnesota fan. So that made it even a little bit more appealing to him. So you gotta kind of watch out and really identify those individuals in your league that may be quote unquote homers that may also end up being up for a trade for one of their guys. And I would say that honestly, that was an even trade for the most part. It's pretty even all the way around. Again, I just wanted a new change of scenery for him and to bring in Marner.
Well, second on the list here is we got a trade. Me and you got thrown together here. Bo Horvat, Islanders. I had him. You were looking interested in getting him. I just found out that Connor on the injured list for me next 6 to 8 weeks. I needed a little extra help with him out as he got off to such a great start. We talked about a couple episodes how pumped I was with what he had been doing as a keeper for me. So we made a move, and you sent me back Lindholm from Calgary and Hintz from Dallas. And tell me a little bit, just walk the listeners through what you were thinking on your side, and then I'll kind of tell them what I was thinking on my side of the trade.
Yeah, this was again. I'll tell you, all of my trades were change of scenery when I was actually trading players for players. I may have actually given up a little more than I wanted to on each one of these trades, but I was willing to do that. So, Rupe Hentz, who I sent to you, man, and we'll get to Dallas. I got a Dallas player I want to talk about here in a bit, but that top line of Hentz, Robertson, and Pavelski, when they go, there's two or three lines maybe just as good as them in the NHL, and they just haven't really went yet. But Dallas is a really good team. I think they will. I just couldn't wait any longer, so I really had to go ahead and say, "Hey, this is a chip I have. I'm going to go ahead and move on from them." And really, Lindholm. Here's the deal. Lindholm for Calgary. Um, People's like, "Why did you actually send two players for only one?" Well, I knew that I had more moves in me, right? So this was the second move out of five, and I knew that, hey, I'm just getting going here. I'll make up the other player. So I didn't mind sending two for one. And Lindholm was another guy that has underproduced on a Calgary team that's actually had a whole lot of issues, but he's got the pedigree, he's got the track record to perform. And really, I think right out of the gate last night, JT, he got you an assist. He just needs to shoot the puck a little bit more, like guys like Blake Coleman, Sarangovich. They've been more the producers of late, and Lindholm really needs to jump in there, and I think he will eventually. Just couldn't wait for him.
Yeah, so the move on my thinking, like I said, Kyle Connor out. I was like, man, I need some help. I felt like Henson Horvat pretty similar to me.
Yeah.
To make a trade for a trade, I could have done it. I didn't love it either way, one guy over the other guy. I did like the idea. Henson's been down a little bit, but I like what that team can do, and I like what his line can possibly do. And then Lindholm, like you said, he's underperformed this year. He's not been great, but I'm hoping for a little uptick eventually here. And so for me, I thought it was worth the 2-for-1 with me losing a big scorer and Connor trying to get a little more firepower. I took two guys that have been underperforming this year that I know, though, can pick it up, even though I did like Horvat and what he had kind of been bringing to me. He had been really solid. To me, it was one of those ones you offered it up. We kind of threw it back once on a counter, and I was like, you know what? Let's just make this trade happen. This is one I'm not going to beat to death. I thought it was pretty fair. And like I said, I was in the position where I needed a little extra help with a secondary guy, and I had an extra spot on my roster because of the fact that Connor got moved to IR. So that was the move there. Let's jump into your next move. Nugent Hopkins for Edmonton. You got 8th rounder next year you sent for Nugent Hopkins.
So Edmonton's just going now, and really, what I really like about Nugent Hopkins is he's on the line with Connor McDavid right now, and that's just that's music to my ears. He's been awful quiet. I wouldn't say super quiet, but in the last week, he's really started to come on. He had a 4-assist game, I believe, a couple games ago, and for an 8th round pick, we got 22 rounds. So you're talking maybe like a top third pick, but 8th, even when we get into the 8th, you're kind of throwing darts, and I wanted to make sure a lot of people out there that actually do drafts kind of like we do, where people actually have, or players actually have draft tags on them. If you send an 8th round pick or something like that for a player, you can always make sure you're getting players back that also got value or a good tag on them, because you might be able to get that 8th rounder back. And Nugent Hopkins actually was kept this year as a 14th rounder. He'll be a 12th rounder next year. Who knows? I might be able to move him to a team in the offseason, grab a 10th rounder for him, and I've actually only lost 2 rounds. So in my mind, I may have got him for free. Now everybody listening to this, it's part of our league, may say, hey, wait, that's the end. I'm going to trade with Toast. I'm done with that or whatnot. But nevertheless, having individuals and players that have great tags attached to them, you can ignore that. So I'm pretty confident I can get something for him maybe.
Yeah, I had Nugent Hopkins in the offseason. He was one of my players that I was looking to keep, but I just had too many guys I liked as keepers, and I was able to trade away him as a 14th rounder because he was such good value. I was able to trade him away, and I think I got maybe an extra 12th round pick out of it. So, it was an extra something for me to take another chance with. So that's always something you want to maybe think about down the line. So I thought it was a good move. Maybe the guy that took him in the 14th was like, hey, I'm probably not keeping him next year.
Mhm.
Can I double up? You can always add more draft picks. So I thought that was a pretty savvy move by you. The next one, Babelsek for Dallas for Henrique from Vancouver, Canada's the ex-Detroit Red Wing.
Yeah, I will fix you on the pronunciations here, JT.
Thank
As
you.
always, but hey, no problem, buddy. We got Pavelski for Dallas.
Pavelski, thank you.
Yeah, that's right. And we got Roenick for Vancouver. And so the deal is I acquired Pavelski and I sent Roenick, and it was straight up. And this was done with another deal with Freddie. So I'd already sent him Kaprizov for Marner. Do the same. I actually get Pavelski. I was put it this way. I send you hints for Horvat. I really wanted a piece of that Dallas top line. Didn't really want to give it up. So I decided, hey, Roenick's a guy who's, in my mind, maybe overproduced a little bit. He was on nobody's radar. He's still the second defenseman on that team that's going to score. I think he's got 2 goals, 24 assists, somewhere around there. Anyway, and will he end up continuing that? Maybe, but he's not a guy that's going to hit a ton. He's not going to block a ton, and he only gets assists. And I could actually have a chance to get Pavelski back, who's top of that power play. So to me, that was a 1-for-1, and I felt really good about it.
The next one I think you had, I think it was Point from Tampa Bay for a 3rd round pick next year.
Yeah, actually, I'll go ahead and mention all of these, JT. This next grouping was part of one mega trade, and I acquired Braden Point, Thatcher Demko, and Travis Sanheim, all of them for a 3rd round and a 5th round pick next year.
Thank you. Thanks for fixing that for me. I thought I was short on that. I'm like, wait, I don't think that's the whole trade.
Yeah, and so I'm going to be without a 3rd, a 5th, and an 8th next year. And virtually what I do is I move 4 players: Kaprizov, Hintz, Lindholm, and Roenick, and I get Marner, Horvat, Nugent Hopkins, Pavelski, Point, Demko, and Sanheim. In my mind, I pretty much have a new team now. And I was still able to keep all of my pieces, my main pieces that I actually wanted to build my team around. I'm going to be a little thin in next year's draft, but I have every bit of confidence that I can gain some picks. I may be out a couple early picks, but I can maybe gain a couple 7th rounders, 8th rounders, and get savvy in a draft and make up for it. So, and you never know. We have about 4 weeks left until the trade deadline's done. I now might be able to go ahead and move a player, especially when Dougie Hamilton, another one of my defensemen, comes off the IR. If he actually comes off the IR, I might be able to move a player like Sanheim, or I actually have Joseph Wool as the goalie, and when he comes off, who knows? I might be able to move Demko again, and he might be able to bridge me there. So now I feel like I have pieces. I've got acquisitions. I have a lot of capital that'll give me a lot of value here come trade deadline. So I just kind of want to jump the gun and get ahead of it.
Nice. That was our trade talks here, talking about Toast making some moves in our home league. Now we're going to get into the main portion of the show. We were talking about underperforming players so far this deep into the season. This is where it can get frustrating. Like Toast, you said you were ready to just mix it up. You want to get some guys in there, but we're going to go through our Toast takes underperforming players on the year and what to do with them. Do you move a guy? Do you wait? Do you hold on him? Do you wait and see if he gets a little bit of bounce back? So we're going to talk about some of the top guys we've seen so far leading in the season. Number 1 for us, Alex Ovechkin, Washington Capitals. Real tough part of the season. He's ranked 159th in our home league so far in fantasy scoring. He was an ADP of 23, 5 goals, 11 assists through 25 games. I mean, this guy is going for all the career marks, 827 career goals, age 38. The guy still, for the most part has looked really good. It's not like the age is catching up with him a bunch, but it's just been one of those years where it's like he didn't get off to quite a hot start. We had a lot of games where me and you were on some early shot prop bets with him. and they just, he just wasn't shooting the puck as much as he had did in the past. His hits and his blocks, his shots on goal aren't terrible this year. They're kind of in line with what he's been able to do. 50 hits, nearly 100 shots on goal, time on ice around 19 a minute. So, it's not like he has issues everywhere out there right now, but there are a few things just holding back his scoring. So, what are we doing with Ovechkin?
Got to be patient with Ovechkin. So right now, he's shooting a career worst 5%. That's unfathomable for a guy like Ovechkin shooting 5%. So on 100 shots on goal, only 5 goals right now. He's a career 13% shooter. And on average, JT, he'll shoot around 350 shots a year. He's on, like you were saying, he's on that pace for that number again. So the geek numbers, the Corsi and the Fenwick and all those geek numbers, and I'll continue to actually call them that because that's what they are. He's saying, really, honestly, he's having a very productive season and one of the maybe 3 or 4 best productive seasons of his career. So, um, so I'd say, right now his team's expected shooting percentage while he's on ice is kind of bad. And with an 8.5% expected shooting percentage, that's the lowest of his career as well. He's not getting a whole lot of help. And so really right now, this supporting cast for Ovechkin, it's not nowhere where it used to be in the past. I mean, he's kind of relying on guys like Dylan Strome to kind of be his best. And Kuznetsov actually had left the team for a while. And so right now, JT, I still, the underlying numbers for him personally say that he's actually having a pretty productive season. And I would buy low on Ovi, especially in a league that values shots and hits as well, kind of like our Bangers League does. I would actually buy. I mean, honestly, JT, I don't know how you feel, but I kind of like to have Ovechkin on my team. I will tell you, before I traded Hintz to you, I tried to shop Hintz to another player for Ovechkin straight up. He actually wouldn't do it. And quite frankly, it was probably the right move for him to go ahead and hold on to Ovi. He had won 4 in a row. This other fantasy player, he was kind of on a roll. He's like, hey, why don't I actually just hold on because I think the best is yet to come. And I think the best is yet to come.
I agree with you. I'm a hold here. If I've got him on my team, I'm not bailing. The other stats are solid. So it's like, are the goals down a little bit? Like you said, the shooting percentage is down, but we should see a bounce back at some point with that. And he's been pretty solid everywhere else. Yeah, he's a guy I want. He's just a professional. The guy's going to end up putting it together all together at one point. But if you do have those owners who just are expecting the world from him and that he's just not absolutely been lighting it on fire, now might be a decent time to go try to grab him. Like Toe said, the peripheral numbers are pretty solid, but his overall scoring might be slightly down depending on your league scoring. So he might be a guy worthy of going out, maybe see if you could snipe him from somebody, if somebody's a little frustrated. So
Well,
I like that idea.
Given the midlife crisis I just had, if he was on my team, I probably would have punted him. So,
I was just gonna say the same thing. I was like, if you have somebody in your league that's like Toast and is just looking to shake things up because he's not happy with his team, this might be a buy opportunity.
Yeah, look at the Ovechkin owners out there and kind of look where they're thin at, and maybe look at some players you have on your roster that may be overperforming just a little bit, or maybe even a lot, where that hey, this isn't sustainable. Go get Ovechkin right now. It couldn't be lower at this point. So if you're gonna buy, get on it immediately.
Yeah, and if you got something like our league where you have a keeper, a younger player that's maybe not putting up unreal stats, but you get a team that goes, "Ooh, that guy's a lot younger. He's a possible future keeper if he hits."
Mhm.
Maybe you get him to sell Ovi, the old guy, for somebody young and looking for the future. So there's a chance there. Number 2 on our list, Jason Robertson, Dallas Stars, ranks 105th currently in our home league in scoring, ADP of 10, 9 goals, 17 assists through 27 games so far, shooting right around his career average at 15%. If you do those plus minus categories, he's at a -5 right now on the year. Typically, he sits about plus 20, so he's a little down there if you are in a league that use those stats. So, Toast, what do you think the reason has been so far for slightly underperforming Robertson?
There's one thing that jumps out immediately, JT, and I can't really tell you specifically why, but it's the first thing I mention is that top line is usually dynamite. And we mentioned it before with Rupe Hentz, with Joe Pavelski, and with Jason Robertson. Last couple years, man, they have just tore it up, and they just haven't yet. They haven't got going. Honestly, it's been the second line of like Sagan and Duchesne and Marchment and those type of players that have really kind of picked up and shared some of that scoring. But used to be where they were so unbelievably top heavy, kind of like an Edmonton Oilers team, where they did all the heavy lifting, and they've done it the last couple years. It's just not happening this year. But do I think it'll actually happen? Yeah, I do think it's going to happen. We're only 21 games in the season. I'm sorry, 28, 29 games in the season right now. I mean, so we're a third of the way through. It's going to happen. They're going to get together here. Those guys are way too talented. But really, here's a telling story, JT, that I don't know if you'd be able to answer. Or maybe some of our listeners can actually answer and hit us up on the X. But last year, he had 313 shots on goal. This year, he's only pacing for 200. He's not shooting the puck. This is the lowest pace for shots on goal in his career, and that includes his rookie season. So, and it's just not him. As I was saying before, Hence, production's down. Pavelski, it's been all right, you know what I mean? But we expect more out of them. His expected goals and assists while he's on the ice, per the nerd numbers, are the lowest since his rookie season. So his adjusted goals and assists based on the numbers are projected for him having 27 goals, 50 assists. It's not bad. That's 77 points in 82 games. That's not awful. But last year, he was at 44 goals and 60 assists. The year before that, 40 goals and 36 assists. This is a top 10 to 15 player in fantasy based on where he was drafted at ADP of 10. I'm still a believer in Dallas. Obviously, he's got line one deployment, power play one deployment, and again, just like a guy like Ovechkin, he's a guy I would actually try to take a stab on and buy low on right now.
Yeah, for me, it's always the wonder when you get some of these teams that are on the top heavy teams, got a lot of talent on their team. Is a guy like Robertson kind of letting everybody else have a little more? Is he kind of trying to feed everybody a little more? Is it one of those situations where he's like, I'm going to turn it on. I just need to get everybody else going first, especially if your team's having a little bit of a lull. I think sometimes guys say, hey, we're having a lull. I'm taking over. Like, I'm just going to shoot nonstop. I'm going to look to put the puck on the net every time. And there's other guys like, hey, do I need to get other guys, more involved to make us a better team? And I'm wondering if that's maybe a slight struggle with him right now, whether they're figuring out, how to make this work. Because to me, like you said, it just doesn't make any sense why he's taking as few shots as he is.
I think you may be onto something there, JT. And here's the reason why I think you're right. That's a great point. Dallas has cup aspirations. And I mean, there were a lot of people's favorite coming into the season, and they haven't been bad. They've been fairly good for the most part. They're right there in the mix. They're a playoff team, but in order for them to take the next step, there probably is a need for, say, their top studs that were kind of absorbing all that scoring in the last 2 years, saying, "Hey, Tyler Sagan, you used to be a big name in this league. We need you. All right, we need you to step up." And Matt Duchesne coming over from Nashville last year. You're actually a pretty big name as well. And then you got guys like Mason Marchment. So they are very, very deep. They got Heiskanen. They also have a Thomas Harley, who is a young defenseman that's actually really, really coming on as well. And so this team's deep. This team with Ottinger and goals, actually, they're really primed to make a long run. And maybe that's what's going on. Maybe he's just easing his way into it and giving everybody a chance. Not sure. But that's the only logical explanation for to drop to 115 shot pace in one season.
Yeah. And again, I'm not, speaking into this is load management, anything like that, like the NBA, like these guys aren't trying. But I think sometimes, when it's going to be a long season, you're going to be in the mix, there's a time where you're like, hey, let's get some other guys involved. I don't need to like kill myself every night to get us to the that's just the case with Robertson right now. He's like, hey, we're going to be in the mix all year. I don't need to go out there and just absolutely torch myself early. And maybe let's get some of these other guys involved. So hopefully that's the case. And hopefully he kind of steps up here later in the year if you've got him on your roster. I mean, obviously he's a guy you probably took early enough that you're needing him to produce. So, but maybe he has that big run because we've seen a lot of these guys in the past. They might be ups or downs for a year, but then you look at the stats at the end of the year, what are they? They're right where their stats always are. You see those lulls. You're like, man, he's way behind pace, and then they always end up making him up somewhere. So he's a guy I'm not worried about. If I got him on my team, I'm holding. I think Dallas and him and that scoring offense are going to start piling it on. They're going to have some big weeks. I have a feeling where you're just going through like, whoa, how many points did they score this week? So I think that's coming. Number 3 on our list, a guy that I've got on a ton of teams that I'm relying heavily on, Matthew Tkachuk, Florida Panthers. Right now, ranked 104th in our home league as far as fantasy points are concerned. Average ADP was number 7. Right now, he's only got 5 goals, 15 assists in 28 games. That's 20 points in 28 games. He's shooting an incredibly low 4% right now, which is unbelievable. His career average is up around 13. So you see that's way, way below the career average. He was 57 and after posting a 57 and 29 on plus minus the last 2 years, he's at -1 for a good Panthers team this season. So that shows you there kind of where he's been at. Toast, what's kind of been happening with Matthew Tkachuk this year?
So the one thing I could think of, and we were told that there's no lingering effects, but JT, you probably remember he broke his sternum in the Cup Finals.
And tried to play through it, which was crazy.
You do wonder if there's any lingering effects to that. Also, too, Florida did make a long playoff and a deep playoff run last year, which they really haven't done before. And again, we're only a third of the way through the season, and the entire team as a whole, again, hasn't been bad, but they haven't been nearly as good as they were to end the season. Now they were red hot, but injuries may play a little bit into that. Sam Bennett, who plays on Tkachuk's line, he's been banged up a lot of this season. So Tkachuk's really 3 points in his last 10 games. His time on ice is down a little bit as well. He's playing a minute and a half less this season in comparison to last season. So the good news is, though, he is shooting the puck. 106 shots on goal, and that's a great sign that right now he's shooting 4% on 106 shots on goal. That's not going to continue at all. The underlying numbers are not bad. They don't suggest he's fallen off a cliff. This would be another guy I would buy low on Tkachuk. So JT, you have him on our home league. I know you won't be getting rid of him anytime soon. So, and I think there's this too. One other thing. Talk about guys like Robertson and guys like Ovechkin. There's a teammate of Tkachuk's on Florida named Sam Reinhart. If anybody wanted to, let's say, if you have Sam Reinhart on your roster and you would like to go ahead and buy low, I would trade Sam Reinhart for Ovechkin or Jason Robertson in a heartbeat. Now, I don't think you're going to get many people that's going to do that, but nevertheless, you could. If you got Sam Reinhart and you're looking to actually really make a big push for the playoffs, go ahead and grab Ovechkin. Go ahead and grab Robertson. I think Reinhart. But Reinhart's bound to regress. He's shooting something ridiculous, like 25% on the season. And he's had ridiculous numbers at 5-on-5 and on the power play as well. So as he starts to regress, I can maybe see Tkachuk maybe picking it up just a little bit. So his best days are ahead of him.
I agree. It's just the thing is, when guys don't get shots on goal, you start going, okay, what's going on? What's their position on the team? Are they asking him to shoot less? Is he just trying to get people involved? What's the case? What's the scenario? He's getting the puck out. I mean, he's shooting, just nothing's going in. I mean, nothing's going in right now. And you got to figure that a little bit. That's just straight up bad luck right
Keep
now.
Shooting,
just
kid.
Bad luck that he just hasn't got those shots to fall yet. He really did have a lot. He was banged up last year and just fought through and on a long season. So I can see a little bit of those injuries, kind of holding them back, and a guy that's banged up all year, maybe he's trying to hold things back a little bit. But Chuck, he's a gamer. I want him. I just think he's just a tough guy. I think we're gonna see his better days ahead. I feel like he is like my team. We just keep putting my fantasy team just putting the puck on the net. We just can't get any goals. I'm just like every week lately. I've just been struggling to score. Been losing close matchups. We were just talking about I lost by 1 point to the last place team in our league last week. He came back on me and beat me by 1. I couldn't believe it. You came back on me 2 weeks ago after I led all week. You made a huge surge on Saturday and Sunday and beat me. So it's like sometimes you got to just keep sticking with it. It's been frustrating the last couple of weeks, but like a Chuck, like I said, I'm not giving up. I'm sticking with him going forward. I think that luck has to change at some point. Number 4 on our list, a guy that I bought super low on last year and was pumped with him, and I traded away in the offseason for another keeper. Number 4, Erik Karlsson, Pittsburgh Penguins. We thought him maybe moving over to Pittsburgh was going to be awesome for him. It has not necessarily been awesome. He's ranked 146 right now in scoring. Draft position for most people, like in the 30s. He went way later in our league because I got him kind of on the downfall the year before, so he was a late keeper. 6 goals, only 13 assists over 27 games so far this year. He's shooting about 9%. It's about he's right around a little better than his career average. I think it is for him. So with Karlsson, the Penguins have been a little bit of a mess. Is this a little bit of him being on a new team and a team trying to get it together? Or is this things finally catching up with Karlsson, who kind of had a resurgent year last year?
I think you hit it on the head, JT. I think it's a new team trying to find its footing. That entire team is a fairly old team as well. I believe that they're kind of on the downslide of success for that team, and he's kind of here first year, and it just hasn't worked out so far. Last year, he won that Norris Trophy with the San Jose Sharks, and really that was the first time that he'd found his previous form since he was in Ottawa. Last year, think about this: 25 goals, 76 assists, 101 points. That's huge numbers for a defenseman. So right now, what I think is happening is Pittsburgh. I mean, Karlsson would rely heavily maybe on power play, and to really rely on guys like Crosby and Gensel and Rust and Malkin to be around him to kind of help out and really be, get those primary assists and secondary assists. It hasn't happened. Pittsburgh's power play is 30th in the league. And I watched them play the other night, JT, when they were playing the Blackhawks. This maybe been a week and a half ago. Their power play is awful. I mentioned on a previous podcast, they have no continuity, no flow on that power play at all. The passes aren't crisp. They're doing the drop passes. It's not working at all. I mean, it's almost as if when they're on a power play, it feels like they're on a penalty kill. So right now, one thing I want to say regarding Karlsson is he's got right now. It's basically majority of his shots aren't reaching the going net. So right now, the amount of shots that aren't reaching net is at a career high for him. All right. So the Corsi Fenwick numbers, the nerd numbers, show the team is controlling the puck nearly 60% of the time while he's on ice, and that Karlsson is productive while he's actually on the ice, and he's having a pretty productive season per the numbers. But just like the other guys that I said, hey, the numbers are there. Give them time. He's going to stay out of it. The underlying numbers suggest it such. I'm just not buying it with Karlsson. Even the underlying numbers suggest that he is actually playing fairly well and playing pretty productive. I think they got a lot of issues on that Pittsburgh team. I think that signing could have been a major mistake for Pittsburgh, and I'm not buying low on Karlsson at all. So I would be staying away from him.
Yeah, for me, it seemed like they were thinking, okay, we got some older players on our team. Let's make one last big go of it. Let's get Karlsson. Let's get some more of these veterans, and it's just not happening. They are just not coming or gelling as a unit at all. And I don't know what they're going to have to do to swing some around, because you look at the roster, you're like, it's a good roster. Like, look at the players up and down the roster. Like, this should be a good team. But Pittsburgh has not been a good team this year. I've watched a handful of their games, and I'm like, this is not what I'm expecting to see when I see the Penguins. Like you said, they just kind of seem disjointed. They just like there's no flow. It's not like you're not sitting there going, "Oh man, when is Crosby or Malginen or when is one of these guys just gonna blow up and score?" It's just like they're just dropping the puck in. They're kind of, I don't know. It doesn't seem like the Pittsburgh Penguins from the last couple of years. Kind of what we've come to expect from them.
And one thing I'll say as well is if Erik Karlsson's having struggles, that Chris Letang has had equal struggles as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they started off the season with Letang's always been their power play one quarterback. And he's been very, very good at that over his career. He's been doing it a long time. And you don't bring in a guy like Erik Karlsson to be on power play number 2. You just don't do that, which again begs the question, why bring him in at all? Why are we even doing that? So they start off the season and they decided to go ahead and put Letang and Karlsson, go 2 defensemen on the top power play as well. It never worked. Obviously, it didn't work. They're 30th in the league right now. So I think this just goes back to, hey, did you really need to make that signing? The $11.5 million for a guy that's actually on the other side of 30 years old, and you already have an aging team. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all. So, and I'm sure a lot of Pittsburgh fans feel the same way. Kyle Dubois, who actually came over from Toronto as their general manager, that was his first big splash he made, and I think it was a mistake.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where the Penguins go from here for the rest of the season for sure. Our number 5 player on the list tonight, Timo Meier, New Jersey Devils. This is a guy we talked about before. Me and you have liked him a ton in the past. We've had a ton of shares of him, but man, Timo, wow, he's off to a slow start. 383rd in our home league in scoring so far. I said that right. 383rd in our home league scoring at this point. That's how bad it's been. Average draft position of 31 ADP.
Wow.
He's got 5 goals, 6 assists in 19 games, shooting just around 9% on the season. It's been rough. Toast. This is the guy we had high hopes for when he went to the Devils. We're like, hey, now he's not the man only in San Jose. Is that a good or bad thing? Does he go to the Devils and he actually is more productive because he's got more talent around him? So far, the answer is no. Why is that?
So what's concerning about Timo Meier is the shots on goals, kind of like Robertson, have fell off considerably over the last 3 seasons. Man, Timo Meier is a shot machine. The last 3 years on goal, 327, 327, and 326 respectively. This year, he's on pace for about 100 shots less than that. And even so, a lot of people may say, well, he's new with New Jersey and he's still kind of finding his footing, doesn't really know kind of his place on the team. May be the case, but even last year in a small 21 game sample with the Devils, he actually had a pace of 300 shots in that small amount. So right now, I mean, his deployment's great. All right. He's on line 1 with Hughes and Toffoli, but he's not getting the top power play time. And he's currently on power play 2. I believe if he was actually producing at the rate that he normally would, there's no doubt he'd actually be on that top power play. All right. So nobody would have predicted he would actually been on power play 2 right now. Like Karlsson, he's at a career low shots, and that really, when I say shots, meaning the ones that are actually he's attempting and are actually getting to the net. He's at a career low. Lots of his shots are actually getting blocked. However, the underlying numbers say his production and also his expected production is down this season in comparison to years past. Okay, so I do not have faith in the player at this point, given his lack of production. I'm not buying low on Meier right now. JT, how much do you think this Meier lack of production coming from San Jose as the number 1 player to a loaded New Jersey Devils team is is that just maybe sharing the spotlight with other great players? I mean, I can't really put my finger on it. Why you guys like, I just don't know how to play hockey anymore, and I'm just not going to shoot. So I don't get it.
To me, it always is a question whether guys that are stars, like studs, pretty star players, but aren't the superstars, can those guys actually play and fit with other stars? Or are they good when they're just the star? When it's just them or them and one other guy, are they much better in that situation than when you're trying to put them with 3, 4 other stars? Some guys just, rise to the performance. They got better players around them. They play even better. They make everyone else around them better. And I feel like there's guys that just don't fit well in those situations. They like gotta be the man. And if they're not the man, they just something happens with them. And I'm not sure if it's I don't know if it's a mental thing or if it's just
Mhm.
the fact that he is not the clear cut best player leader of the team that he has been for pretty much his entire career with the Sharks. And whether that mentally messes with someone, whether they can adjust, and say, hey, well, now I got to kind of like figure out what my role is on the team, where your role was always go out there and be the man. Just shoot the puck as much as possible, try to score as much as possible, and hopefully everybody else jumps on board and they play well too. And so I think sometimes there can be a barrier when you're trying to make that adjustment. I think some players adjust to it and do it well, and I think some players don't. I just don't think they adjust to it well. I think it to make a comparison, I think it's a little bit like the NBA in that sometimes you get these guys, they look like superstars on bad teams when they're the man. And then you get them on a team with 2 or 3 or 4 good players, they get traded to them. And you think, hey, this guy's going to be just like he was on that other team. And you get there and he puts up half the stats. You're wondering, like, what's going on? Well, it's because he was the man. When he was the man, it was all about him and he just did his thing, and he's not used to just fitting in with everybody else. And I'm with you. If I can sell Meyer right now, I know it's going to be hard, and you're definitely going to get a depressed value for where his stats are been. I don't know if I see a huge upside the rest of the year for him. I really don't. And maybe you can sell him on the name. That's where I'm wondering. Is like, can you sell him on, hey, he's been a stud, he's gonna have a bounce back, and you get someone that maybe looks at that and says, hey, maybe he's down a little bit, and maybe you offer up somebody that's not the name brand that Timo Meyer is, but maybe is producing better. Maybe you make that move now because he's one. This was one I'm actually worried about, and like I said, I've got him in a couple situations. I think we've got him on our salary cap league, right? Team,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So again, it's like, and I thought that was going to be great for us on there. Now I'm like, ooh, what are we going to do with him exactly? So he's a tough one. Going to have to keep an eye out on. But if you can figure out how to kind of like work all the people in your league and see if you maybe can move him, I might be considering moving him if I can, even if I feel like I'm taking a loss.
Yeah, one player that comes to mind. I'm just trying to think of comps, based on the player's name, like you said, JT, and also too maybe looking at somebody that's on a pretty good team, and may not have the actual household name, but like Valerie Nichushkin for Colorado, having a very very good season. He's actually coming into Colorado's top power play, getting very good line deployment, mainly because Arturi Lekkonen's hurt. And I think that even when Lehkonen comes back, they're going to have a hard time moving Nichushkin off there. But if you think about Timo Meyer, the player, and Valerie Nichushkin, the player, and putting them side by side, that may be where if you have Meyer, you might be able to reach out to like a Nichushkin owner, especially if the Nichushkin owner, let's say either A, struggling to actually put up, points overall as their team, they may like that upside of Timo Meyer versus, with the players he actually plays with. Now, Colorado actually is no slouch themselves at all, but I just kind of look at a comp like that,
Mhm.
So I'm not buying low on Timo Meyer right now. I'm not actually looking to acquire him. I'm probably looking, if I have him, looking to move him. And actually, again, you're going to have to realize that you're not going to be trading him for the Timo Meyer he was last year or the year before. That's not going to happen right now.
And I feel like because of the scoring is so low, maybe you're going to struggle with a 1-for-1 deal, but maybe he's a good guy to throw in a package. If you're going to
Yes.
package some guys together, he's a nice name in the package. You know what I'm saying? So I think if you can do something with something like you kind of did, like we talked about in our league. Let me pull that trade back up real quick for the listeners. Where you got made a move and you had traded your third and your fifth, and you got Point and Demko and Sam. Maybe you do something like that. Maybe you trade Meyer away for a draft pick next year. Maybe you add Meyer and a draft pick for, like you said, the Colorado player and a later draft pick.
Yes.
Maybe combo something up like that. I think that could be a nice idea for Meyer. Because again, he just with the production, he might be hard to sell a 1-for-1. But if he's a big name in the group, I think you might be able to get something done on him.
I think you hit it on the head there, JT. That's a great idea.
Let's head to number 6 on our list for tonight. Oh, we're talking about the guys that have been struggling. Johnny Gaudreau, Columbus Blue Jackets. Oh my goodness, this guy. I feel like he's fallen off a cliff in the last year and a half. It's like he's not even the same player. 387th in our home league in scoring, average draft position 70. He's got 4 goals, 11 assists in 30 games this year. So 15 points in 30 games. He's shooting a terrible 6% on the season. He's averaging just barely 2 shots a game. Everybody was wondering when he made the move from Calgary to Columbus, was this going to unleash him? Was he going to finally just take that next gigantic step or not? And he has gone the complete opposite way. I don't understand what's happened to Johnny Gaudreau, but man, his time in Columbus has not been pretty.
No, in the past, he's been a point per game player. In his last year in Calgary in 2021-22, he had 40 goals, 75 assists, 115 points. He did that shooting 15%. That's great numbers. That's really, really good numbers. This year, it's bottom of the barrel. It is just tough sledding. It can't get any lower. And I think here's some of that has to do with that. He's been healthy scratch this year, JT. They got a new coach in Columbus. Sounds like he's not putting up with any crap. He's building a culture there. And along with him getting healthy scratched a couple times, Patrick Laine's got scratched a couple times. Think about it, your 2 best players, and those are big commodities, big names in this league, and you're getting healthy scratched. I mean, it's unbelievable, man. Even last year with Columbus, he had a good year. 21 goals, 35 assists, 74 points in 80 games. It's crazy right now how bad things have actually done. The underlying nerd numbers say he's having his least productive season, his least expected productive season of his career. Things are going to get even more difficult now, JT. I'll tell you why. Boone Jenner, he's either out for the season or he's out for a long time. Okay, I want to say it's out for the season. They're going to have to rely on the second pick overall in the draft, Adam Fantilli. Fantilli's going to be a good player. All right. Fantilli's actually already, I think he may have like 8 goals already on the season. He's actually played pretty darn well for I think a 19-year-old rookie. I mean, really well. He's going to have to pick up the slack. And then eventually Gaudreau's going to have to get back in the mix. So what's scary, right now, he's never really been a player to rely on the power play for his production. However, his 5-on-5 numbers this year, which he normally relies on, they're awful. They're really, really bad. So I don't even really see any sight or any end in sight to this point. I'm not really sure. It's a complete dumpster fire right now in Columbus when you have Laine and you got Gaudreau actually getting scratched and the numbers are what they are. Where do you go? I mean, that's not a winning organization. That's not a cultural organization. I have no idea where you go from there.
Toast, we're coming up on the hour here. Final face-off. Get our kind of thoughts in here. You've made a bunch of moves this last week. Like I said, we're third of the way through the regular hockey season. Fantasy hockey, we made some moves. I got off to a great start. I'm hitting my lull the last couple of weeks, taking some bad losses. I made some trades. I still think my team has got a good shot. I'm still in the mix. You made some big time moves, which I was pretty shocked you were able to get so many moves done. I was like, man, Toast he's got that red phone over there. He is working it.
It was
like,
red.
You're killing it, man. Because I was like, you just were like, it was like bam, 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 just trade. It was like making some moves, but and it's not like you were completely out of it, but like you said, you just weren't happy with your team where it was going. You're like, hey, it's time to shake things up. Sometimes that's just what you got to do.
Yeah, so we're 9 games into the regular season. We're in week 10 right now. Most formats have 18 to 19 to 20 games in a regular season, so we're at the halfway mark. And most trade deadlines are coming up here in the next month. You can't wait until, let's say, you're 4-6 or 4-7, or even 4-8. You have to jump on it now if you're going to. And what my thought with my team is I can maybe just sneak into the playoffs. And if I sneak in our league, we actually have 10 teams. We have 6 make the playoffs. The top 2 actually advance to the semis automatically. Seeds 3 through 6 play. If I can make it, I'm going to be a very dangerous team that I would hope that not many people is going to want to play. And I really wasn't ready to call my season yet. So, but in saying that, fantasy managers, you got to be patient through at least the first half of the season. You got to see and assess what you actually have. And then you get that sense that, you know what, I'm going to be really, really good. Maybe I just need to add another piece to go ahead and give myself a little bit more depth. Or I have a lot of names that are very, very good all of the time, but are not working out. And so when that happens, you really got to draw a line in the sand and make a decision and say, I'm either going to shake this up big time or I'm going to play for next year. And I really wasn't willing to play for next year and start selling off my people. So we'll see if I end up liking it. So, I mean, it could work out. But
we'll
what I
see
will
how
say,
it works out. Yeah, we'll see how it works out. But like you said, our home league's super competitive. So you just got to make the playoffs. I'm 4-5. I've dropped 3 out of the last 4 games. Like I said, 1 point last week. You came back and beat me by I think 8 or 9 points 2 weeks before that. There've been a lot of really close matchups. But I'm right now currently 1 game out of second place.
yeah,
Still, it's like, I mean, our league is bunched up. I mean, we got everybody together. It's always a super competitive league, and you just got to stay in the mix. You got to keep making sure your team's getting better, and you got to be hoping you're hitting your stride at the right time. I know last year I felt great about your team and my team going to the playoffs. I thought we were both hot, hot, hot. I was like, we're going to play each other in championship. I was like, it's coming. And we both got knocked off first round. I was like, I couldn't believe it. And so you just never know. You never know. Just got to get it. Got to get into the playoffs and hope that's you can turn it on there.
Yeah, and one philosophy, since we have like maybe another minute here or two, JT, is if you are going to make a slew of trades like I made, make sure you're getting some good value in return. Meaning that if it doesn't work out for you, that these are still pieces that you can move on and maybe try to recoup what you gave up. You don't want to actually take on players, especially in a format like our home league, where they have draft tags attached to them, or if they have auction tags attached to them, where they're a certain price if they're kept or whatnot. Make sure you're actually getting value for value, even though you're actually shaking it up and trying to get some new blood in there. So that way, in the end, if it doesn't quite work out, you're still setting yourself up to kind of recoup what you lost in the offseason. And last thing I'll say is I'm still putting out toast takes on the X mostly every single day regarding the suggested gambling bets tonight. I'll just walk the listeners through. Anytime assists, it was McKinnon and Dobson. I can already tell you that Dobson has already got his assist. Anytime point, I had Matthew Barzal. So far, right now, that actually has not happened, but Barzal has been on a really hot streak with an anytime point. They're hosting an Anaheim team tonight that, quite frankly, has lost 9 out of 10 games. They haven't been very, very good at all, but yet Anaheim's up 3-2, and I believe that game's in the third period. And then lastly, shots on goal. Crosby for 3 or over. That's actually hit already as well. And I liked Montreal at +1.5 at home to actually cover +1.5 at home. And right now they are actually in a dogfight versus the Penguins 3-3. And that's in OT, so that covered as well. And I love the Montreal money line as well. So right now, all of those are actually looking good. Make sure to kind of hit those up every single day, play some bets, and look at Toast Takes.
Yeah, check out those on Toast Takes at Toast Clark on the X. I also put those and retweet those on my personal page at JT Orange. You can find me on there. And then we also throw them out on the JT Brew Stew at JT Brew Stew is the actual X page for the podcast for the Stew with JT Brew. So you can check out any of those. Go like, follow those. Again, tell your friends about us. Like Fantasy Hockey. Give us a thumbs up, a subscribe, leave us a comment. anything you guys want to hear or talk about future shows, feel free to hit us up on any of those platforms and let us know. We'd love to talk about, kind of whatever you guys want to talk about. So another good show in the books, Toast. Hopefully, we just talked about some guys that aren't doing so well. Hopefully we get some inspired for performances here in the next couple of weeks, and we can talk about a little more positive stuff on the show moving forward.
Sounds great, JT. I'm dying to actually see it happen. So look forward to talking with all the listeners next week.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us on the Stew with JT Brew. For Toast Clark, I'm Justin Taylor. Thanks for joining us here in the Stew. We'll see you next time.
You up on trades and why you move? You ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing. Racking up points makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release. We started with the mock draft and now we make